You want to kick it off?
I'll start it off. You ready?
Yes, sir.
What's really good, and welcome back to another collaboration episode. It's Real Fans, Real Talk. It's the Sanchez Show, and this is the pregame show. We're leading you right up to kickoff at 1 o'clock. We got a lot of sports to get into, man. We got NFL, we got some NBA, we got a little bit of boxing, and then we 2 games into the World Series. So, of course, we got to talk about that, man. But first things first, let me introduce my brother and co-host, Trip Young. Trip, how you doing today, bro?
What's going on, man? It feels good to be back live. We've been rocking and rolling lately, man. They loving us out there too.
Oh, the streets got a lot of love for us, man. And we back into the swing of things because now we're giving the people the live. It's more interactive. We're able to answer questions right on the spot, which I love. And we got so much to get into. Again, this is prime time sports fan season right now. NFL, NBA, World Series. We're getting fights at the same time. So it's a beautiful time of year. And of course, it's Halloween, man. So happy Halloween to all the kids out there that's watching as well.
Yes, sir. Happy Halloween to all, the grown-ups that went outside and got, these little sexy costume out there ripping and running in these streets. I like Halloween sometimes, man. I be having fun sometimes.
You gotta have fun with it. You know that. You gotta have fun with it. But it is definitely a great time of year, man. We got a lot to get into. Where do you want to start today, Trip? Like I said, we're going for about an hour and a half, right up into kickoff. So it's definitely a lot that we could talk about today. What you want to start off with today?
Facts. Let's jump right into it. Arguably the best team in football right now, definitely the number one team in the NFC, has gotten a hell of a lot better on the defensive side of the football, and they were already pretty damn good playing defense this season anyway. But the Philadelphia Eagles, which I'm a little bit upset about, they were able to bring over Robert Quinn from the Chicago Bears, big time defensive player, and I think this edition is going to be like the way we talk about the Rams edition of Von Miller last season. I think that's what this acquisition does for the Eagles.
Yeah, I love this move for the Eagles. We talked about it a little bit on Friday Night Live series. Just more depth now along that defensive line. You know about Jordan Davis, you know about Fletcher Cox. Now you add Robert Quinn to that mix, another guy who can get to the quarterback, 18 and a half sacks last year. I think this is an outstanding move for them. We talked about everything the 49ers did. We talked about the Cowboys possibly being a sneaky contender in the NFC. This, to me, separates the Eagles a little bit because now they solidify the defense that was already pretty good.
Facts. Absolutely, bro. I think that this team, this acquisition is going to make the Eagles very tough to beat. Like, this was like literally the first time when I'm like, all right, hold on. Philly is legit Super Bowl contenders now. This was the first time I've said that this season, just because, I do, understand that the Eagles have had somewhat of a lighter schedule this season. And, the rest of the season, they have somewhat of a light schedule. But this acquisition here, man, this is going to make the Eagles tough to beat. What Robert Quinn can do for them on the defensive end, any team in the league would love to have Robert Quinn playing defense for them. So, you know what I mean? Like, I'm pissed off, but you got to recognize game, man. You got to respect it.
Yeah, I mean, of course, as a divisional rival for you guys, you don't want to see him there. And obviously, we see the leadership that he brings to the table because you see Roquan Smith was crying when the news broke in Chicago that he was on his way out. So, but in terms of what it does just for Philadelphia, I think it does separate them from the rest of the division. I think they were already the best team in the division. Now you add that type of pass rusher. And if he has the impact, as you mentioned, of what Von Miller did last year when he went to the Rams, then you're talking about a Super Bowl impact. You're talking about a guy who completely changes the defense and now turns you into an elite defense and a true Super Bowl contender, which is what the Eagles are trying to accomplish this year. Again, I love the move on so many levels because the Eagles have so many draft picks, so much draft capital moving forward that this is what you're supposed to do. You can only play but so many of those rookies, right?
Yeah.
So you got to go get the vets that can give you an opportunity to win it all. For Robert Quinn, I think it's a great opportunity. I know the Bears didn't want to give up on him. They love what he brought to that team on the field and off the field, but
Mhm.
they also are not in a position to compete for a Super Bowl. They're just
Facts.
rebuilding things right now around Justin Fields. So kudos to them to get him over to a contender and giving him a chance to play for something this year.
Facts. Uh, really quick. Shout out to Ryan. I see you in the chats over there. We talking Eagles right now. He said the Eagles need to get a running back. I mean, Miles Sanders been playing pretty well for them, but I have been hearing some speculations that they may be looking to add some running back depth. Maybe Kareem Hunt, who's been, I guess made available now, or at least the Browns are willing to listen to offers for him because they weren't before. Um, we know Cam Akers is available with the Rams. They haven't been playing him because they expect to eventually trade him. There's a couple other running backs, but I mean, damn, Eric, after this acquisition, you had to add one of those guys, especially if you're going to get a Kareem Hunt. Oh my goodness, that would be unfair at that point.
Well, I'll take it a step further. I did see reports that they even spoke with the Saints about Alvin Kamara, and they were trying to
Yes.
gauge. They were trying to gauge from the league if there was going to be any discipline coming down from that issue that Kamara had in the off season. As of yet, Kamara has not been suspended or anything, and I think that's pretty much been the only holdup because the Saints are willing to do it for one first rounder, and the Eagles have a bunch of first rounders, not only this year but in the next coming year. So they could do a first rounder this year, they could do a first rounder in the future, whatever appeases the Saints. But if they get Alvin Kamara to go with all the weapons they already have with Devontae Smith, with AJ Brown, with Quez Watkins, obviously Jalen Hurts having a great year. Now you're talking about a truly elite offensive and defensive team, the likes that we probably don't see in the league right now. Buffalo is one overall on both sides of the ball, but I don't even think Buffalo has that many weapons. So the Eagles will put themselves in a different category if you're able to get Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, that was the other thing too. I have been hearing that the Bills are trying to add some running back depth. They already have probably the best defense in football, so the acquisition that the Eagles just made kind of just helps them get closer to that. But if you talking about adding a top level or at least upper echelon running back to that Bills offense, which is the only real spot on their offense where you can kind of be like, they could step that up. I think at this point, Josh Allen might be their best running back out there. But yeah, if the Eagles can add Kamara or Kareem Hunt, they're going to be a problem. They're going to be a problem. That kind of would definitely blow out the McCaffrey signing in San Francisco that we spoke about last week. So I guess they're going back and forth trying to see who can make the most pickups and make that run to the Super Bowl, man. But I like it. I'm hoping the Giants can make some moves at this
Well,
point.
right now it's an arms race. It's an arms race because you see teams trying to angle, especially in the NFC, because I do believe it's so wide open. I think in the AFC we know the pecking order. It's Buffalo, it's Kansas City, then there's everyone else. But in the NFC, it's really wide open, and it's really about the matchups. If we're able to stack out our roster the right way, then we can win any matchup, and that's what the Eagles are trying to do. That's what the 49ers are trying to do. But to your point about Buffalo as well, yeah, Buffalo definitely needs a running game. Shout out to Ryan on that. They gotta get that situation taken care of because I think it's a little too much wear and tear that they put on Josh Allen right now, especially with all the design quarterback runs and sweeps that they have him doing. They got to get a little more balance because balanced football is what wins in the playoffs. We've known it. We've seen it time and time again.
Exactly. I agree with you 1,000% on that. I'm looking forward to seeing where these pieces fall because I'm hearing rumblings about Jerry Judy possibly being on the move. There's a lot of wide receivers out there. A lot of teams that could use some of these wide receivers. We spoke last week about Odell Beckham possibly coming back within like the next couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on with that. The Giants did make one move. Um, I'm not. I like the move, for moving forward, but it doesn't really necessarily help us now this season because we sent out Kadarius Toney for a conditional third and a 6th-round pick from the Kansas City Chiefs. So moving forward, I do like to get in the draft capital. Kadarius Toney, I like him, but he just can't seem to stay healthy. who knows? Maybe he goes to Kansas City and he can stay healthy. Some that happens with some guys. They'll be injury prone on one team, get traded to another team, and then all of a sudden now they healthy. So who knows? Hopefully, for him it works out. But I do like the Giants picking up more draft capital. That third round pick could be a pretty big pick for us.
Yeah, I mean, for the Giants, it makes sense. The Giants have exceeded all expectations this year. Let's not forget. For as excited I know as you are, Trip, that they're 6-1 and they're in the position they're in. No one expected them to be at this point. Everyone thought this was still going to be a building process. I want to know personally what happened in that locker room, because Kadarius Toney was only in his second year in the league. He was a first-round pick. You normally don't give those guys away for a third and a sixth. You normally try to wait it out. He's super talented. We've seen it. I know the injuries have been a part of it. Last year, he dealt with COVID. He's had the hamstring issue this year. So there's some things going on there physically. But something got to be going on mentally for you to just cut ties with a guy that talented, especially since that locker room is thin at receiver. We talked about it, right? Shepard's gone for the year. Galladay has not performed well. Slayton has been up and down. Right. So you would think that they would have at least tried to give it a full year with Daboll and see if we could work it out and keep that guy under contract and under wraps with them. Because again, he's on his rookie deal and he's only in year 2 of that rookie deal. For Kansas City, I think this is a truly great pickup. High reward, low risk. Because if he pans out, he could fill the role that Tyreek Hill has left there. If he doesn't pan out, a third and sixth isn't going to really hurt Kansas City too much because that roster is already established. Those third round picks for them are filling the holes. Guys like Pacheco, guys like Skylar Moore, those are the type of guys they're looking for in the third and fourth round anyway. So they're not hurting for the draft capital. For the Giants, it's a good move long term, but short term, this could be big for the Chiefs, as you mentioned, if he can stay healthy.
Absolutely. We're gonna jump over to the Buccaneers because big shout out to Ryan. He's about to go coach a game, but he wanted to hear us talk about Tom Brady and whether or not we think he will be here after this season. I mean, we all just saw the news about the divorce, so I don't, at this point, I don't think there's anything keeping Tom Brady from playing football for the next 3 years if he wants to. So I think we do see Tom Brady next season, especially with the way things are going now. If the Bucs were playing better and looking like legitimate Super Bowl contenders, and they could get to another Super Bowl, win or loss, I mean, maybe he leaves, but I don't think Tom wants to go out on a bad note. He wants to go out with that team at least being a playoff team. Right now, they're not even a wild card team. They're looking really bad. The O-line is hurt. Ryan Jensen is out. He's one of the key pieces to that offensive line. And they just lost Shaq Barrett for the season, in addition to all the other injuries that they face this season. So no, I don't think Tom Brady leaves on this type of a season.
Yeah, I don't either. I mentioned it last week. I thought you definitely get another season, maybe 2 out of him. I think with the divorce now being public and as they try to finalize it, it will be a tough season because there's so much stuff going on away from the field. But he won't leave on these terms. There was already speculation before the season that he was trying to angle out of Tampa anyway to get to a better situation in terms of roster and team. So I think he'll revisit that idea. If Tampa is not close enough to competing for a Super Bowl by the end of this season, he'll revisit the opportunity to join somewhere else because there will be some teams that will still use and need Tom Brady for a chance to elevate themselves. So I don't think he's done. I think you get at least one more season, possibly even 2.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. It's Tom Brady, man. That's the GOAT. He's definitely going to be here, man. You got to love that about him. Has this been the longest career for an individual player, especially playing at this level? You got to give it to that man. But yeah, I think he'll be here at least one more season, if not possibly 2 seasons. I think we'll still see Tom Brady. Other injury news: Bengals lose my guy Jamar Chase for 4 to 6 weeks. That's a huge hit for me in fantasy football because he just came off of a 51-point performance for me in the league. So I'm a little upset about that one. Eric, we spoke about this division. We know what the Steelers are not. We know what the Browns are not. It was pretty much going to be a 2-man race between Baltimore and the Bengals, but now the Bengals, they lose their star wide receiver for a month and a half, maybe even 2 months. Um, how do the Bengals fare? Can they hold on long enough to keep them at least in wild card contention?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. I think the Monday night game could be a little bit of a trap for them against the Browns because the Browns are getting healthy defensively and the Browns are going to get back to running the ball. But long term, you're talking 4 to 6 weeks for a team right now that's already sitting in second place. The AFC East is super competitive. The AFC East looks like they're probably going to produce multiple playoff teams. So for the Bengals, I didn't think they were going to win this division to start with. It's tough. I think they may miss the playoffs now. This injury, where it lands, and because of all the issues they have on the offensive line, I think they miss the playoffs this year.
Yeah, it sucks for them. That's a huge loss. And I like Jamar Chase. I love the chemistry that him and Joe Burrow have. Bringing that college chemistry that they had straight into the NFL and kind of just going bananas. That's a big loss for them. I don't think they keep up with Baltimore anymore. Baltimore getting that win on Thursday Night Football, which was a very much needed win. In accordance to this, they should at this point, be able to win that division. But yeah, sorry, sorry to the Bengals fans out there, but I think this was your shot to kind of make that push. And without Jamar Chase, it's going to be extremely, extremely hard for them. So yeah, I don't see it happening. I don't think they
Yeah.
make it back to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean they lost, the first 2 games of the season that they lost, I think hurt them a little bit because when anyone looks at the schedule, you kind of know who you match up well against and who you should beat. They were supposed to beat Pittsburgh week 1. They were supposed to beat Dallas with Cooper Rush in week 2 because that was Cooper Rush's first start of the season. And so that already sent them behind the 8 ball. But just for argument's sake, like I said, they're 4-3 right now. They get the Browns on Monday night. I wanted to give you a couple games that's still on their schedule. They got to go to Tennessee. They get the Chiefs the following week after that. They still got Tampa, Patriots, Buffalo, and Baltimore on their schedule. That's 5 competitive teams. Aside from Tampa, Tampa may be out of the mix by that point. I don't want to write Tampa off because obviously they still have a legitimate shot to win their division, even if it's only with 9 wins. But everyone else there looks like they're going to be a playoff team. Titans are leading their division. Chiefs are leading their division. Buffalo is leading the AFC. The Ravens are leading their division. And then you still got the Patriots and Bucks who are going to have a lot to play for because both those teams are expected to be in a playoff mix as well. So it doesn't really get easier for the Bengals. And like I said, if we're talking him being out for 6 weeks, that means he's going to miss the Tennessee and the Kansas City game.
Yep. So it's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah.
T. Higgins, Joe Mixon. You know what I'm saying? Y'all better step it up if y'all want. If y'all want to have any shot, y'all gonna have to step it up and do more. It is what it is. You lost your big threat, deep threat wide receiver, who's one of the best in the league. That's hard to make up for. But you get a little bit out of each player, step their game up a little bit, might be able to salvage this thing until he gets back. But I, for one, just don't think that's going to happen. I think it's pretty much a wrap for that. Let's talk a little bit of New York football, man, because we have 2 pretty good New York football teams right now. I think actually I can't even think about the last time both the Jets and the Giants were this good at the same time in a season. It's crazy.
02 was the last time they both.
That's 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat flash across where it said 02 was the last time that they both were 3 games over 500 this late in the season at the same time.
Has it gotten that bad?
Well, 20 years? I mean, to be fair, I know the Giants have been in a very tough stretch over the last 10 years since the last time they were Super Bowl bound. But to be fair, this is more about the Jets than the Giants. We know that. For the most part, you take away that rough 10-year stretch that the Giants have been under. They were competitive for the early parts of the 2000s and obviously in the 90s as well. For the Jets, this is kind of the norm. They go through these funks for long stretches and long periods of time, and then they'll have 1 or 2 really good seasons. Obviously, the Rex Ryan, Mark Sanchez years, those were good for them because they went to back-to-back AFC Championship games. But other than that, this is who the Jets have always been.
No, facts. Yeah, man. Listen, I'm happy. Obviously, I'm a Giants fan. I'm not a Jets fan, but it's not like I don't have the relationship with the Jets that I do with the Mets type of
Mhm.
situation. Like it's just like whatever. It's the Jets, whatever. But they playing really good right now, and they have a young team, so they could really start to come into their own over the next couple of seasons if they can just continue to improve little by little each season. I mean, it's looking like right now, if they continue at this pace, they should make the playoffs. Um, you know, Obviously I think the Bills win that division, but the Patriots who they play this week, we're going to talk about that, are a very beatable team. The Dolphins are beatable as well, just because we don't know who's going to be playing what week, because of injuries. Um, and then everything that's going on with Tua right now. So you know, I love it for New York football, man. I hope you guys are excited because we have, like Eric said, we haven't seen this in 20 years. Both of these teams playing at this level for this long into the season. Who do you take though today in that Jets Patriots game?
So today I have the Jets. I love the Jets team. I've talked about it all off season. This was a team that kind of flew under the radar. Again, I didn't think they would be 5-2, but I love their draft. I've loved their last couple of drafts. This year, obviously, getting Brees Hall, getting Sauce Gardner, getting Garrett Wilson to pair with what they got last year and Elijah Moore and Zach Wilson, and then Quentin Williams the year before that. I love what they're doing on both sides of the ball. They're building the right culture. I think the Jets are truly one of those young teams that are going to develop into a contender. Today, I like them over the Patriots just because I think the Patriots are making a big mistake with going with Bailey Zappi. This offense looked like trash with Mac Jones when he was prior to he got injured, when he was playing, and when he came in last week as well. They looked bad. Immediately, Bailey Zappi gave this offense a shot in the arm. They were throwing the ball down the field. They were stretching the field more. Everything looked more crisp with Bailey Zappi. And I think Bill's being a little stubborn. So that's why I think they lose today. But Trip, to your point about the Jets making the playoffs, I love to do this. We got to look at the schedule. We got to see what's coming up. For the Jets, the next month is going to tell us everything we need to know about the Jets. I'm going to give you the 4 games they got coming up. You let me know where you think they land, because they got the Patriots today. Then next week they got to go to Buffalo. They get a bye week. Then they got the Patriots again. And then they got the Bears at home. They got to find a way to go 2-2, maybe even 3-1 in that stretch, because 3 of those games are divisional games. You can't lose all 3 of those divisional games. That's what makes today so important. You got to win today. Then you got to find a way to be competitive with Buffalo. If they come out of that stretch 2-2, and we're talking about a team that's 7-4, then it really shapes up well for them down the stretch, because after that Bears game, they still got some winnable games. They got the Lions, they got the Jaguars, they got the Seahawks on their schedule. So this is potentially a team that could get to 9 or 10 wins, but today is big for them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. Most of those games that you said, if the Jets play the way they're playing, those are winnable games.
Right.
Outside of the 2 Buffalo games, I think they probably wound up losing both of those games to Buffalo, because I just think there's levels, and Buffalo is really in that upper echelon. The Jets are a young, good team, but I just don't see them, being able to go toe to toe with the Bills, whether it be at home or on the road. I do pick them to win. I picked them already to win this game versus the Patriots. I think they can beat the Bears at home. I think they can go on the road and beat the Patriots a second time, because I just don't like where the team is right now. That Minnesota game on the road is probably going to be the 50-50 toss-up. But they can beat Detroit. They can beat Jacksonville. They can beat Seattle. And, by the time that Dolphins game comes back around in Miami, who they completely, dominated earlier, this season at
Dropped the
home.
40. They dropped a 40-piece McNugget on them.
Yeah, so they can probably, beat them, depending on if they're already locked in and whatnot, and they don't really need that game. But yeah, I think we see both the Jets and the Giants in the playoffs. And I don't know, it was as did that year they were both good 20 years ago. Did they both make the playoffs too, or what happened?
I could double check. I'll try to get that answer before we get off the air, but they might have been. I gotta say,
Okay,
they might have been.
because this might be the year that happens. Because again, looking at both teams' schedule, we talked about a week ago about the Giants' schedule and their next upcoming 4 games, and we both said they're all 4 winnable games. So and I kind of feel the same way with the Jets. Outside of the 2 Buffalo games, which I think they'll probably lose both, and the Minnesota game, I'm gonna say that one is a coin toss because nothing in Minnesota impresses me that much to where I'm just like, no, there's no way the Jets can beat them.
Oh, that's a fact. Minnesota could be a very winnable game as well. I'll say this though. I would love for the Jets to win today, not just because we both picked them, but they get Buffalo next week. And we expect Buffalo to beat the brakes off Green Bay on Monday night, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
can you imagine what MetLife Stadium will sound like next week if the Jets are 6-2 and the 6-1 Buffalo Bills are coming in for potentially a first place game in the month of November? I don't think Jets fans have been in that position, like we talked about, in 20 years, maybe even more than that. If the Jets win today, the energy in that stadium next Sunday will be phenomenal. I would love to see it. Jets win, Buffalo win, and then set up that great matchup for next week.
Now, I'm gonna ask you this because make sure you guys are tuned in on Friday nights when we do our Friday night lives and we pick our 401k picks and our upset picks.
Mhm.
Would you pick the Jets for the upset next week if they win today, going into next week's game? Would you pick the Jets as your upset pick of the week?
Right now, no. Something drastically we have to change, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because like I said, when you look at rankings of teams, Buffalo is number one offensively and defensively. One of the reasons we all like them to win them all is, like we said, even if they struggle offensively against Green Bay, their defense is probably going to still be very good and limit anything Green Bay does. But right now, bro, even without today's games being played, have you looked at what the line is for next week?
No, I haven't seen it.
In New York next week, even without this week's games being played, Buffalo is already favored by 10.5 points.
Jeez. Whew. Yeah.
That should let you know everything you need. Vegas knows how good Buffalo is. Like,
Yes.
And that is very disrespectful to say Buffalo is 10 points better than the Jets when right now the Jets are 5-2, Buffalo's 5-1, and we're potentially looking at a first place matchup. But that's how confident Vegas is in Buffalo as well.
Now, do you think those odds change if the Jets win this game? Does that come down?
Yeah, I think 10.5 is very disrespectful when you consider it's a divisional opponent, because these are when you see most of the upsets. When a divisional opponent goes up against each other because you're so familiar with playing each other twice a year. That line is probably going to come down to like 7.5. It'll probably come down by like 3 points once it becomes official. Yeah, because that line won't really be official until Tuesday after all the games are played. So that line will come down. But again, it still speaks to how good Buffalo is, that Vegas is already projecting potentially a 10-point line when we don't even know the results from this week.
Yeah, facts. No, listen, I think it does go down a little bit if the Jets win, but I'm still picking them. And listen, Jets fans, I've been supporting y'all this season. I've been complimenting y'all and giving y'all flowers. Eric, you even know, would you call it the Bing Bong pick? I took the Bing Bong pick.
Bing Bong parlay
twice this season. Yeah, the Bing Bong parlay
twice this season. And because let's talk about the Giants before we get into this. Let's talk about the Giants because you guys have a really good game. One of the better games of the day in Seattle today. The Giants are getting 3 points. Seahawks a little banged up at receiver. Obviously, DK won't be there. Tyler Lockett is dealing with a hamstring injury. But this has been two of the most surprising teams in the NFC. Trip, I want to get your thoughts on it. I know who you're picking to win, but I want to get your thoughts on it. Will Gordon, what's good, bro? We see you in the chat.
What up? Well, man, we got to get you in the mix, man. We need you outside with us, man. Yeah, man, the Giants. Oh my goodness. I mean, I already picked the Giants, so it is, that goes without saying. And we spoke a little about this on Friday. The loss of DK Metcalf, I think it's gonna, at least this week until the team can kind of get acclimated to him not being there. I think the Seahawks offense does struggle a little bit this week. And with how good the Giants defense has been playing as of late, I think the Giants get this win. I think it's gonna be a low scoring game though. But I do think the Giants ultimately get the win.
I love the Giant team. Brian Daboll is the coach of the year. That to me, nothing's going to change that because they've already exceeded their win total from last year. So he's the coach of the year. This game, though, to me, is just one of those really tough situations in the schedule because they played in London a few weeks ago. Then they had to come back home. They didn't get a bye week. Then they went to Jacksonville, and now they got to go to Seattle. And all three of those games, they had to come back. They had to come from behind to win. Green Bay down 10 points, Baltimore down 10 points. Last week, they were down 4 points. I think the travel gets to them a little bit. Seattle's been a tough place for them to play. I also think this could be the revenge game for Geno Smith. And again, I think the Giants are the better team, and the Giants have greater potential as the season goes on. I just think this is a very tough spot in the schedule for them with all the travel they've had to do over the last month. I got the Seahawks winning this game. I don't think the Seahawks cover, though. I can honestly see this being a 23-21 victory by Seattle where maybe a last-second field goal wins it for them.
All right, well, listen. We're gonna wait and see. We got the 4:00 game today, 4:25 to be exact. Yeah, man, we look. I told you we needed all four of these. And we got the one last week. We started off on a good note. A good win for us at Jacksonville. So I still like our chances. I think the Giants hold on, man. But yeah, man. Let's really quick. Let me just shout out everybody in the in the group chat. Keep sending those comments in. Keep sending those questions in. Whatever y'all want us to get to. If y'all want us to kind of throw a little curveball into the rundown, we definitely got you on that. And make sure you guys are following us on all our social media. I know y'all been seeing them at the bottom of the screen, but I'll let y'all know. Facebook.com/Real Fans Real Talk. Instagram, Twitter at Real Fan Talk, and make sure you guys hit that website up, man. www.realfansrealtalk.com. We are live now on Sundays, but you can also catch the show every Thursday night on Verizon 43 all throughout New York City. And if you're not in New York City, just go to that website, realfansrealtalk.com. I'm gonna actually throw it up on the screen for you guys right there. And you can watch on Thursday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. from anywhere you are in the world. Just click that red button on the homepage, and you will be good to go. Let's talk some NBA news, man. A lot going on. Beginning of the season. When I sign like that, Eric, it's a topic I don't really want to get to, but I got to get to it. We got to talk about this thing. Lakers. The LA Lakers are still winless. They are the only team in the NBA to not win a basketball game this season. We've been talking about this the past couple of weeks. Eric, we kind of both been talking trade. At this point, it's not if, it's more of a win question. How bad do you think this thing has to get before the Lakers pull the trigger on the Russell Westbrook trade?
Listen, I'm going to double down on exactly what I said last week on this very platform, that the Lakers cannot wait to Thanksgiving to make a move. We've talked about it here. We talked about it on a Friday Night Live. Trip, you put the clip out there where I said the Lakers are in danger of possibly getting to 0-6 or 0-7 before they win a game. They got Denver coming up next. That doesn't look very promising at all. Then after that, they get the Pelicans. That don't look good. The Jazz, all right, you could probably beat the Jazz, but then after that, you get Cleveland, you get the Jazz again, and you got the Clippers. It's gonna get ugly before it gets more beautiful there. They got to make the move immediately.
Yeah,
I know they don't want to part ways with both those first round picks. I completely get that. I know that you don't have much to really offer anybody else because there aren't many pieces on this roster. But you have to make a move to get some sort of shooter and get some sort of balance on that floor. Because right now it's disgusting the way they're playing. These games aren't even competitive anymore, Trip. These games are over with 4 minutes to go. Like they're sitting Braun out with 4 minutes to go because these games aren't even competitive.
Yeah.
This continues. I know it's going to be a lot made about Braun chasing the scoring title and being an all-time leading scorer, and all that is fine and dandy. But you don't want this to become one of those seasons where no one is even interested in anything you're doing on the floor because it's over before it even gets started. We're just getting into November, and we're already talking about this team needs to make a trade. They're 5 games in. It's ugly there, Trip. They got to do something immediately.
Well, guys like ourselves have been saying they need to make a trade before the season started. So I just want to let the people at home know we have been, talking that talk for some time now. Um, I mean, I don't know, man. It's like, what are you gonna let it get to 0-10 before you start saying, all right, maybe we should look into it? Eric, my trade has always been I would like for them to go after Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, but you did come to us with a very interesting trade that actually we've been thinking about since Friday, which would have been a possible trade to Miami, Kyle Lowry and Duncan Robinson for Russell Westbrook in one of those first round picks. Um,
Yeah,
listen, at this point, it's like y'all better do something, okay?
yeah. I mean, I had got in the lab, and I might have had a few beverages, and I got in the trade machine, and I said, let's figure this out, because the Indiana trade can't be the only trade. I know everybody's talking about it, and it does make sense on paper. You get Buddy Hield, you get Miles Turner, but we already know the Lakers don't want to part ways with both those picks. Another trade that was presented that had been floating around the internet was Russ and a pick to Utah for Conley. This was before Bogdanovich got traded to Detroit. Conley, Bogdanovich, and Rudy Gay going back to the Lakers, which would have given them a little more depth, and Bogdanovich gives them the shooter. But again, they didn't want to part with both picks. So Utah ended up trading Bogdanovich to Detroit. To me, the Miami pick makes sense on both fronts. You get Kyle Lowry, who's a good defender. Not that the Lakers defense has been bad, because that's actually been the one shining spot of this team. Their defense has been good. But you get Kyle Lowry and you get Duncan Robinson, both guys who are much better shooters than Russ and therefore fit the roster better. On the flip side for Miami, I think they need more. They need more out of that point guard spot. Kyle Lowry just isn't the right fit. We talk about heat culture. We know all about heat culture, but they need a guy who can push the tempo, who can get the ball out of Jimmy's hands at times, and can give them a shot in the arm and a boost of energy. And Russ would fit that perfectly. Also, Miami would get that future first from the Lakers, because most people expect by 2025 the Lakers are going to be bad anyway, and that pick is probably going to be a top 10 pick. So I think it works for both sides. Lakers get a little more shooting, they get a little more balance, and it still gives them that extra pick to make the additional move. Because as I mentioned on Friday, even if you make the move for Hield and Turner, that doesn't solve all your issues. You still have depth issues coming off your bench. That's why they don't want to move both those picks in one trade.
Yeah, listen, we both know what it is. The league knows what it is. The world knows what it is. The Lakers know what it is. It's just a matter of when are you going to be ready to say, F that pick. we need to make some moves right now. It's crazy to me that in a season where LeBron James will become the all-time leading scorer, you are not willing to make moves that could at least help them get to the playoffs. Like, you are wasting. This is going to be an iconic year, not only for LeBron James, but for the Lakers organization, because the guy who's number one right now is also a Laker, and an NBA champion, Hall of Famer with the Lakers, the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. This season should be a big deal for the Lakers. You need to go and do whatever it is that you have to do to salvage this season, whether it be going to get Kyle Lowry and Duncan Robinson, which I'm warming up to, or whether it be you go to get Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. But you have to do something right now. The season cannot wait. You guys cannot wait any longer. You are 0-5. You got to win 5 games just to get back to 500. Just to say you're back on the board, you got to win 5 games.
And right now, where it could really get ugly for them is the division is tough. That division is very tough, because Phoenix off to a 4-1 start. Golden State is in that division. You know Golden State's going to win 50-plus games. And then you got the Clippers potentially could be a 50-plus win team. So we haven't even got to that part of the schedule. You haven't even got to the divisional games that, again, you're going to be an underdog because you don't really match up against those teams. So this could get really bad for them right away. I'm shocked that, and like you said, F them picks at this point. But I'm shocked that they're taking this approach of trying to be conservative, because they had no regard for draft picks when they went after Anthony Davis. They had no regard for any draft picks. They didn't care, because in their mind, it was like, we can't waste these LeBron years. LeBron came here to try to win. Let's get him the piece he needs. Now, you did that but then you let all the supporting cast go. You traded all those rotational pieces for Russell Westbrook, and now you're kind of gun shy to make the move to get the pieces you need. You know, you didn't have to trade for Russ. We talked about this at the time. They didn't have to make the move for Russ. They could have stood with Kuzma, with KCP, with Caruso, and kept at least some of the rotational guys to give them more depth on that roster. They didn't, and now for whatever reason, they're shy to make a move for pieces they need.
Yeah, listen, man, I don't get it, but I'm hoping that they get it together and make that move. On the other side of that, the only team left in the NBA that is actually undefeated, the Milwaukee Bucks, champions from 2 years ago. I I love it. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Milwaukee right now. We both kind of put them in the Eastern Conference Finals at a minimum this season. But talk to me about Milwaukee, man, and how good they are looking right now. Maybe I would like to see them add a little bit, some depth maybe to the bench. But other than that, they are looking back to what we saw 2 years ago from them.
I mean, Milwaukee, as you said, we were all in agreement that we're expecting a deep run from the Milwaukee Bucks. I've got them getting to the finals this year and playing Golden State because I do think they're the best team in the East. I think Giannis is the best player in the world. Oh, by the way, they're doing this without Chris Middleton. So when they get him back, then they really get it going. So I think Milwaukee is coming out with a chip on the shoulder that we love to see from teams. They know they lost to a Boston team that they probably were better than, but they weren't fully healthy. So now they're coming out and they're showing everyone we are the best team in the league, and we're going to continue to thump you guys and do what we got to do against you guys. This team is looking really good. Giannis is looking like Giannis. You could use a little bit more depth. Obviously, they don't have DiVincenzo anymore, so of course they're missing some things there. But just Giannis, what he's doing early on this year, he's averaging 34 and 14, Trip. 34 and 14. We talking about a guy trying to be dominant. That's dominant. That's what I'm talking about. Averaging over a block and a half a game. That's dominant. So I love what I'm seeing from them. They're going to be a threat all year. The rest of the Eastern Conference, I know Boston is the representative, but to me, the Eastern Conference goes through Milwaukee.
So let me ask you this, Eric, and I got to ask you again, because people say different things. Is Giannis still the best player in basketball?
Absolutely, without a doubt. And we've had this debate. Shout out to Will Gordon. I know Will's in the group chat right now. We've had the debate about more skilled and best player. And I don't think they both go hand in hand because Kyrie is probably the most skilled point guard in the game, but he's not the best point guard in the game, right? KD is more skilled than Giannis. But if you're telling me it's game 7 and I need the best performance you can give me to win this series, I'm going with Giannis because Giannis has shown us time and time again, you're going to have to kill me on the floor. You're not gonna get a soft performance from me. I don't care if you put me on the free throw line 20 times. I don't care if you double me. I don't care if you force me to figure this out. I will figure it out. I will keep attacking you. I will keep running into your chest until one of us breaks. So to me, that's what makes Giannis the best player in the game because in a 7-game series, we saw it last year. Look at the numbers. Go back and look at the numbers he put up against Boston shorthanded.
Yeah.
And what did they still took Boston to 7 games. Yep. Boston needed all 7 games to eliminate Giannis. To me, the best player in the game is number 34 in Milwaukee.
Absolutely. We're in agreement on that one. And like you said, when Chris Middleton comes back, they are going to be a terror to have to deal with. Giannis said, you know what? They gave that guy in Denver 2 back-to-back MVPs. I didn't like that. And I'm coming for my third right now MVP. And if you get on my nerves, I might come for my second Defensive Player of the Year award this season. Shout out to Giannis. Shout out to the Bucks, and shout out to a guy right now who's playing in Chicago, who is about 7 points away from hitting that 20,000 point club, and that is DeMar DeRozan, man. Shout out, man. Got to give that man his flowers.
You have to. An amazing career. One of the most consistent guys the game has ever seen, right? Never in the MVP conversations, but always an all-star. Always a guy who can get you a bucket. One of the few guys that still has a really good mid-range game, too, because that's a lost art in the NBA now. But DeMar DeRozan will kill you from the mid-range all day, every day. Kudos to him, man, and a well-deserved accomplishment as well.
Facts. Listen, gotta love it, man. Shout out to him. He was having an MVP season, last year with the Bulls. Just struggling a little bit to start this year off, but again, that's a huge accomplishment for DeMar DeRozan. Big shout out to him. And if we're giving out flowers, we also gotta hold cats accountable for their actions as well. I don't know what the hell was in the water in San Antonio. Uh, but Josh Primo, guard for the San Antonio Spurs, uh, he's outside being a naughty boy, exposing himself to women, and it's pretty much gonna cost him his NBA career. Because the Spurs, they wash their hands of him. They cut ties. He said he's going to be seeking some mental counseling. Wish you the best, brother. I hope you get whatever services you need. You work on whatever you need to work on, because this ain't it. What you doing outside, that ain't it.
He from Canada, so maybe they do it a little different over there. But I'll just say maybe I don't know. Maybe they do a little different over there. But you just can't be running around exposing yourself to women, especially without their permission. You just run around. It's just a little wild, and we got to tone down the language. This is a family show, but and there might be something in the water in Texas in general, because Deshaun Watson was in Houston when he was doing what he was doing. But
oh man,
yeah, we got to call it what it is, Trip. But this is super, just stupid of this young man. Career is in jeopardy, and it's really even before career even started. He was only into his second year in the NBA, and so now the talent is there. Obviously, he was a first round pick of the Spurs, and even teams have called around just to see how serious and severe these allegations are before anyone even entertains the idea of bringing him in to their team and their organization. But like you said, it could be over before it starts. It's going to take him some time to rehabilitate his image and the trust of any organization. And unfortunately, your career may be over before you're 21, man, which sucks.
yeah, because it's not like we're talking about a top guy, a
Oh,
top draft pick, something. You know what I mean? So you probably threw your career away with this one. I I don't know what was wrong with that brother, but hopefully he uses this time to reflect and get whatever help that he needs, and maybe he can get his life back on track and get a second shot in the NBA, or maybe playing overseas or something. But yeah, man, you got to do better, brother.
and I will say this too, and it we shouldn't even have to say it, but we will. I applaud the Spurs for being swift in their decision and not, oh well, let's see what's going. No. The moment they heard about this, they cut him immediately. No nonsense, no questions asked. Get him up out of there. This is a well-run organization. Pop ain't standing for that nonsense. But also, we saw the way they developed Becky Ham as a coach, and so now to say, nah, we're not tolerating this either. Kudos to them.
Yeah, listen, and this is the worst. This is the worst possible time for things like this to happen. We are still in the midst of the Me Too movement, and certain things will just not be tolerated, and certain things are going to be made harder for you to bounce back from. So, and it's especially when you mentioned Deshaun Watson. When you don't have that type of resume or talent level, it's going to be extremely hard for you to bounce back. At the end of the day, we're talking about businesses, and if you're a top talent, somebody's going to give you a call. But when at the bottom of the totem pole, makes things difficult, and it makes it a lot easier for teams to say, "Nah, we don't want to deal with that." He's nowhere near worth the headache, the backlash that comes with all of that. Let's cut ties. Let's get him out of there. You know, Hopefully for his sake, nobody really knows him like that. Then they don't really know Josh Primo, so maybe he can kind of in a couple of years, since he's young, kind of reinvent himself, get the help that he needs, and come back. But again, we got to wait and see on that one. But you know, do better, man.
Absolutely.
Um, while we on the NBA, I saw my guy. I want to say like a couple of days ago. My main man Barry, Barack Obese. You know, he was doing a press conference, and he was saying, and Eric, I want to get your opinion on this too because I know like you're somewhat of an expert in this field, and Barry was saying that he had the best jump shot of basically all the presidents that had been in the White House. Now, I might be mistaken, Eric, but from what I've seen of guys, I I would have to go with my man Barack as the best jump shot of all the presidents, but not just because he's a brother and we got that thing on a lot, but I've seen him play on several occasions, and Obama he got some skills, But talk to me, man. Does he have the best jump shot amongst all of the presidents?
Oh, that's a fact. That goes without a doubt. We've seen the footage. We could bring up the footage if people need to see it. Barack was the only president who had consistent pickup games taking place in the White House. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Where cats already knew on that day of the week, like, yo, we got the gym reserved for 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? Barack had the YMCA type game, which we all respect. It was similar to like an Andre Miller, one of them old school point guards, bring the ball up a little slow, herky jerky, pump fakes, all that good stuff. But Barack definitely had game and without a doubt had the best jump shot of any active sitting president or former president.
Yeah. So all right. So now
there ain't no debating that.
Okay. So now my next thing would be, it makes sense that he would be tied to an investment group that would ultimately be trying to purchase the Phoenix Suns. It makes sense because he got the jump shot. He's a shooter. They used to have shooters in Phoenix. You know what I mean? So I like it, man. What do you think about President Barack Obama being part of an ownership group that owns an NBA team?
I love it. I love it for so many reasons. The first is the Phoenix Suns organization needs to do a lot of damage control right now, coming out of this Robert Sarver fiasco. So you get Barack Obama, someone who is as established and respected as he is, coming in, even though he's part of a group, he would still be the most recognizable name of that group. So it gives you credibility on that front. The second part I love about it is we can't forget that during the NBA bubble, when the players had the opportunity to really flex their muscle, and they could have really hamstringed the league by walking away from the bubble, he was the one on the phone with LeBron, with Chris Paul, with CJ McCollum and a lot of the other leaders of the league, and kind of advise them as to what to do and how they could use their power in a positive way so that the games could continue and that the league would not suffer from those guys walking away from the bubble, especially after the NBA put so much money into the bubble in Orlando. So you have those factors. And then the biggest factor, and the elephant in the room that we always talk about, more diversity, more minorities in the ownership group, more minorities with a seat at the table. So Barack would check all the boxes on all those things. Again, I know we're biased, Trip, probably our favorite president, but nonetheless, I think someone who is more than accomplished enough to have that seat at the table. And I love it for all those reasons I just mentioned.
No, absolutely. We know the type of the relationship that he has with several NBA players. You know what I mean? So I think it makes perfect sense. I love it. It's dope, man. I think it is dope for Barack. That's the next. You got to level up, Barack. My man Barack owning a piece of the Phoenix Suns, man. You have got to love that. Big shout out to President Barack Obama, my guy. Oh man. Oh, speaking of spending money and dropping the bag, the Forbes list, new top 5 out.
We knew that was going to shift pretty quick.
Yeah, it definitely did shift quickly. Golden State at 7.3 billion. That is crazy. It makes sense because they do got a lot of championships over the past couple of years. What's not crazy though is the number 2 team, and that's your New York Knickerbockers, Eric. They're always going to be in the top 5. New York is a basketball city. People are always going to support the Knicks no matter what. The Garden is the mecca of basketball. They are still number 2 on the list. at was it $6.1 billion on their network. I, hopefully, could you imagine, Eric, if the Knicks actually made it to the playoffs like consistently, how much that organization would be worth if it's worth $6.1 billion now, and and they haven't really had a consistent playoff run in since maybe the 90s.
Well, to be fair, I mean the playoffs would help, but it wouldn't change that number too much because the Knicks are one of the few organizations that have complete control over everything they do in terms of they own the building. Obviously, they got their own cable network, so there are different streams that come in to the organization that a lot of other teams don't have. A lot of other teams don't have. And you know this, like with the Yankees have the Yes Network, so that
Yeah,
boosts their value as well because I control all of my content that goes out year round. But
facts.
yeah, I mean, if they made, if put it this way, if the Knicks were a consistent winner, the fan base would probably be larger than what it is, and then yeah, you probably would still have more ways to make more money. But ultimately, it really comes down to the business side of things. James Dolan, no matter how we feel about him as an owner, has done right as a businessman because from the time he's taken over, we've seen the creation of MSG Network and him having full control of the Garden. So, but of course, I've thought about the Knicks being a consistent playoff team. Trip, that's all I think about. I think about trades. I think about ways that I can help the Knicks, even though they don't even employ me. But I think about ways I could help the Knicks. So, of course, I think about that.
Because Eric, you're a hell of a fan. I will give you that. You have dealt with some torture over the years, and
Yeah.
you are a hell of a fan. You know what? I gotta give Knicks fans credit because for you to stick it out and ride with the Knicks for all these years, y'all are tough, man. So I gotta
Listen,
give y'all some credit.
the Knicks, I always say this, and I don't know if he's watching now. My man Leo, he tuned in last week. He sent us some questions about the Giants. I always say this: the Knicks hurt me way more than the Mets, because at least the Mets every couple years they give me a winner. Every couple years they give me a team that's a playoff caliber team. The Knicks,
Mm-hmm.
similar to what I said about the Jets earlier, the Knicks is always these 10 to 20 year droughts between good teams. The last time the Knicks was really good was 2015. We're 7 years past already. We're approaching
Yeah.
10 years before we're going to be relevant again. So
Well,
it's always the same thing with them. Hopefully this year, maybe a little something this year. They got off to a good start.
hey, listen, Jalen Brunson is looking really good for the Knicks. They're actually looking pretty good this season. So big shout out to the Knicks. Just to round out the top five, the Lakers come in at 5.9 billion, followed by the Bulls at 4.1 billion, Celtics at number five at 4 billion, and Brooklyn comes in at number seven at 3.5 billion. Just for you New York guys.
Yeah, and I mean,
Um,
look at some of the teams you mentioned, and they all, like I said, owning the network because the Nets are over on Yes, so they have the exclusive rights there. Boston has Nesson, so I think
Facts.
that's why you see that because again these are teams that are tied to a network, so now there's so many other ways to generate money for the team. Now if basketball was like baseball where there was no salary cap, then the Knicks could just sign anybody we wanted,
Oh,
and then it'd be different. But we got to
if
still play by the rules.
if that was the case, the Knicks would probably be at 10 billion right now. If there was no salary cap in basketball, the Knicks would be at 10 billion easily right now. Because if you telling me the Knicks is going to be at 6.1 billion, and who's the biggest name on the Knicks right now?
There isn't one, to be honest.
And there's really not. You
No.
know what I mean? I guess Derrick Rose, but for his previous
Yeah.
stint. But other than that, nah, bro. Like
I,
so. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say I heard Van Gundy the other night. I forgot who they were playing, but it was so true what he said. And his whole logic on the Knicks was they haven't been able to land a star player, so they've got all these other decent players. He was like, if you did like a ranking, the Knicks don't have a player that's probably a top 40, top 50 player in the league, but they got a bunch of guys that are in that 50 to 70 category. And it's true because Julius Randle ain't an all-star. Jalen Brunson ain't an all-star. Your next best player is RJ. He's not an all-star. None of those guys would crack any top 30, top 40 list. None of those guys.
Yeah.
But once you get to like 45 and on, then you'll see all those guys' names right behind that.
Hey, it could work because if you think about it, right, most teams are gonna have one guy maybe in the top 15. So if you're lucky, you get two guys. but the rest of those rosters fill out, and then you be talking about guys that's like 70 and 80 with the rest of those guys that fill out the roster. So who knows, man. But shout out to the teams making money, man. Everybody's up. The bag is getting bigger year by year. So big shout out to all of those teams. We about to go into a little bit of overtime as far as the show goes, but
hey, real quick. Yeah, I know. Because we're less than 30 minutes from kickoff. Just a quick update. The Broncos end up coming back to win that game, 21-17 over the Jags. So that might save their season.
It just might. Damn, I wish Jerry Judy could have got a couple more yards, but it is what it is. I had a pretty good game from him today. I was surprised that he even did what he did today.
Oh, I brought up the update because you talked about the trade deadline early, and I was thinking that, like, if they lose today, he might be on a different flight home after that, because they might start breaking it up on the way home.
They might still be doing that, bro, because it wasn't like this was nothing impressive that would lead me to believe that this thing is going to work out long term. So who knows? When the right offer comes along, you might, teams might just take it.
True.
But really quick, baseball. We got the World Series going on right now. Unfortunately, the Yankees know the Mets is in the World Series this year, but it is what it is. We're gonna be back next year, man. But we do got the Phillies and Houston tied up 1-1 right now. Philly took the first game. Houston took game 2. Who are you taking in the series though, Eric? Because we never even gave our picks for the World Series.
We didn't get a chance to. Yeah. I dropped it on a previous episode, but yeah, we didn't get a chance to talk about it. I got Houston in 6. I just think they're the better roster overall, and I really want one for Dusty Baker. He's come up short a couple times. It happened with the Giants, happened with the Cubs, so I do think he's due. But I do think it's going to be an entertaining series, and if the first 2 games have been any indication, it will be. Houston was up 5-0 in game 1. Philly stormed back in one of the extra innings. Then yesterday, Houston got it going again. Their pitching was really dominant in game 2, and they end up winning 5-2. So I think it's going to be good. The next 3 games are in Philly. You never know. Maybe Philly can handle business there. But I think they do get back to Houston for game 6.
Okay. I do agree with you. I think Houston is the better team. I'm calling for the Phillies though. Bryce Harper. Hope he can get back to it. But either way, I ain't got a what's saying go? I ain't got a horse in the race.
We got a horse in the race. Listen, I meant to look for the clip before the game on Friday, and I was doing a little bit of traveling. For anybody who tuned into the live, I didn't have the normal background. I was on the road, but I'm so happy for Bryce Harper, especially that he hit that home run to elevate them to the World Series. Because Trip, like I always give you your flowers, you were the first person to give me an opportunity and a platform to speak on. One of my first pieces that I wrote for Real Fans Real Talk was how baseball did not take advantage of promoting their young stars. Mm-hmm. And there's a clip circulating that's still on the page where I mentioned Bryce Harper at the time, and I said they never promoted Bryce Harper or Manny Machado the right way. Bryce Harper had the opportunity, had the chance to be baseball version of LeBron. He came into the league so young. He was a flashy, flamboyant guy. He was a different face for the league. They never did it. So I'm so happy he's on this stage now to remind people of how good he is. He's a multiple-time MVP. This guy consistently hits 30 home runs a year. He just turned 30. He is going to be truly one of the great players of the game. And it's unfortunate that Major League Baseball never found a way to truly promote him the way they should have.
I tell you what, though, which is crazy. If he played for the Yankees, he would have had that promo.
I mean, but even still, I always, and I agree with you. I think certain cities make you a star right away. Like if you play for the Dodgers
or the Dodgers,
Yankees, right,
Boston,
right. There's a certain allure already with those cities. But to me, I never understood Major League Baseball when the Nationals came from Montreal. For people that don't remember, they used to be the Expos.
Yep.
Bryce Harper was their first face because they weren't even good yet. So that was a perfect opportunity for baseball to say, not only do we have this new franchise in a new city, but now look, we got the 18-year-old kid that everybody's been watching YouTube clips of in home run derbies, and hitting 450-foot home runs. And now he's in our quote unquote new city with our new team. And they still never promoted it the right way. And I love what he's getting from the Philly fans. I love the connection because you can see the way that crowd goes crazy for him. And he's been the star they needed him to be. Even this year being hurt, he still hit 18 home runs and has already had 5 home runs in the playoffs. So he's been amazing for them.
Yeah, MLB just definitely dropped the ball on that one
Right.
because they should have. You're absolutely right. Everything you said, he could have been that type of LeBron player because I mean, one, he is talent level. He's of that talent level. You know what I mean? As well, he's definitely lived up to that hype. Um, but yeah, they dropped the ball on that. But that and that's why MLB is kind of picking up the rear right now. That's why football,
Hmm.
the NFL, and the NBA is kicking their butts, right now because they don't have that promo. There's only certain teams where you're gonna get, what I'm saying, like we mentioned, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets, you'll get it. There's only certain teams where you're gonna get that crazy push, and it's unfortunately it's not a league wide thing. So it is what it is. We still got a couple more games of the World Series. I'm sure by the next week we'll probably be around if Game 6, if in that vicinity. By the time we get back to you guys on the on the live stream. Before we get
Yeah.
up out of here, a little bit of boxing news. Lomachenko defeats Ortiz. He retains the belts. He is supposed to be fighting Devin Haney. I'm thinking that's supposed to be the next fight. I'm hoping we get, and I think we will get that one because I think I, a lot of times what we have the promoters getting in the way of fights, and which is why it sucks that we're probably not going to get Errol Spence Jr. And Terrence Crawford anytime soon. But I think in this situation, all signs point to that's going to be one of the next big fights in boxing. Lomachenko versus Devin Haney. What was your take on the fight though?
Lomachenko looked a little old. Now I will give Ortiz a lot of credit because they had sparred together in the past, and he was kind of familiar with his style. So that showed early on in the fight. He was able to land some pretty clean shots. But Lomachenko is still one of the greats. I want to see him against Devin Haney, and I do agree with you. I think it's going to happen. Devin Haney, to me, from what I've seen from him, is not just the best lightweight in the sport, but I think he is truly a boxer that comes from the cloth that we all appreciate. And that's the guy who wants to fight the best guys. Him taking less money to go to Australia to fight Cambosis and then giving him a rematch in Australia proves that he's really trying to be the most dominant guy in that division. He's already said he wants Lomachenko. He's wanted Lomachenko for quite some time. They make that fight happen. And I think he's a true champion in the sense that he's willing to defend it against whoever the best is in that weight class.
Absolutely, I love it. That's what we need more of in the sport of boxing. What we need less of in the sport of boxing is Jake Paul fighting these over the hill, not trained well, you know, fighters that none of which are boxers. Um, I watched some of the fight, some of the Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva fight, but when I'm just looking at the breakdown of this fight, you're talking about a 47-year-old Anderson Silva coming out of retirement to train in the sport of boxing, which I'm sure he wasn't training for professional boxing. Um, the past couple of years he's been in retirement. He might still be training, but I doubt it's in just boxing. So you're pretty much talking about a 47-year-old retired Anderson Silva probably just starting to train vigorously over the past I guess month and a half, 2 months. Um, I'm just tired of seeing Jake Paul stack the deck in his favor and people just lapping it up. Like I'm listening to the announcers last night and D Rodden, and I'm just like y'all realize this is another over the hill opponent who's not a boxer by trade going up against a 25 year old kid who's been training professionally for the past 5 years now, maybe
4 years
four.
officially, he's been training.
Okay, training for the past 4 years. I already knew this that Anderson Silva wasn't going to be the one to put an end to this BS. The only good thing that came out of this thing, which this was like the one thing where I was like, you know what, I got to give Jake Paul a lot of respect on this. The bet that he made with Anderson Silva prior to the fight, where if Anderson Silva won, Jake Paul would fight him in a kickboxing fight, which obviously we knew that was never going to happen. But if Anderson Silva lost, he has to become the president of an organization that Jake Paul is going to start to help MMA fighters get more money in their fight purse. So that I was like, you know what? That I mess with. That I really mess with. I think that was dope of Jake Paul to do that. Who better than Anderson Silva to be the president of an organization like that? The only person, maybe like one of the Gracie brothers or something like that. But I think Anderson Silva is a prime candidate because he's someone who's had a great career in UFC and MMA period. So I think he is the best guy to do that. And I got to commend Jake Paul on that one.
Yeah, yesterday, and I started to text you. I was watching this with my nephews. I was visiting family, so I found it very interesting the reaction of the casual boxing fans to this event because I agree with you. I don't like the fact that people are trying to pretend as if Jake Paul is really taking a path to being a serious boxer. He's not. He's fighting MMA guys. He's fighting guys who haven't trained nearly as long as he has. And in most cases, he's the bigger fighter. So none of that to me is respectable in terms of a career. Entertainment, yes, not a career in boxing. But everyone that I was around yesterday pretty much was a casual fight fan. They really didn't know who Anderson Silva was. They couldn't name you 5 of the top boxers in the world aside from Canelo because Canelo is one of the few household names, and Floyd, but Floyd no longer fights. So the feeling I got yesterday was that what Jake Paul is doing for the sport is positive from the standpoint of people are interested in seeing a fight. But the negative aspect of it was when people saw how old Anderson Silva was, it was like, why is he fighting this guy? This guy isn't even a boxer. When people saw it was only 8 rounds, why is it 8 rounds? That to me let me know everything I needed to know. The gig is up on Jake Paul, I think. I think at this point, the casual people who have been tuning in kind of see like, all right, it's become more of a gimmick and a show than an actual fight. Because again, Anderson Silva, who they try to say had 3 professional boxing fights, he didn't. Tito Ortiz, who he fought in his last boxing fight, was also an MMA fighter. He didn't fight a boxer. The only boxer he's ever fought, and it was supposed to be an exhibition, was Chavez Jr. That was his first real boxing match. So again, you had the advantage training wise, you had the advantage from youth, you had the advantage from the standpoint that you were the bigger fighter, and yet it was still a competitive fight. And so most people, the feeling I came away with is people looked at it like, it's gimmicky. It is what it is. We know his name, but it's gimmicky. So for him, I think he's doing a great job as a businessman. But no one is going to take any of these fights serious until it's an actual boxer in the ring. I know it's not all his fault. The Rockman situation fell apart. The Tommy Fury situation fell apart. But until Jake Paul gets in there with a trained boxer, I don't think anyone takes any of this serious. And he's the only one that really views himself as a boxer. The rest of us just view him as an entertainer.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do blame him for the Rockman situation, because that was another situation where he was trying to stack the deck in his favor. For you to try to make Rockman come down 30 pounds damn near in 30 days, it's like you basically you were trying to put him at a disadvantage because he's not going to be able to train if he has to lose 30 pounds. Like,
But
yeah, he'll get some.
yeah, no, you're right. But the whole Rockman situation was a joke from the beginning because
Yes.
the Tommy Fury negotiations broke down because of Tommy Fury. Tommy
Well,
Fury.
he got hurt. He did get hurt first, but then after he got hurt, then it was
the first time he got hurt, and then they had already solidified the negotiations, and then during the promo run, Tommy Fury started making up excuses about not being able to be let into the country, which weren't true because they were photographs of him at other events in different cities the same week that he somehow wasn't able to show up to the promo for the Jake Paul stuff. And then they had sent him an additional contract to rework the date that he never got back to them. And that's the post that's floating around where Jake Paul is like, we've sent him the new contract. He's got 48 hours to respond. Tommy Fury never responded. So then he tried to make the fight with Rockman. But like you said, with Rockman, it was a joke from the beginning because Rockman knew he wasn't going to be able to cut the weight. Yeah. And Paul knew he wasn't going to be able to cut the weight. And yet somehow they still try to negotiate and say, oh, we're going to get this fight on, when both sides knew it wasn't going to happen. So I give him some slack for the Tommy Fury, for the Rockman stuff, because we knew that he was trying to stack the deck, and he knew it wasn't going to work. But at the
Yeah.
same time, he did try to fight Tommy Fury, who's a legitimate boxer, who for some reason doesn't want to fight Jake Paul. And to me, I don't know if Jake Paul knows these things behind the scenes. I don't know if these are already conversations they had and they kind of know, like, hey, this guy really ain't too interested in fighting, but we're going to call his name out. Or this guy is willing to fight, but we probably don't want to fight him. Ultimately, though, none of it matters anymore. He got to get in the ring with a boxer at some point. Like, you've been training for 4 years. You've built up. You're trying to tout out a record now of, what is it, 5-0? He's trying to call himself because he beat Nate Robinson. He beat Woodley twice. He beat Ben Askren, and now he's beat Anderson Silva. So I don't want to see a record come up anymore on the bottom that says 5-0 as if you fought boxers when you didn't fight boxers. And he loves to say, oh, no boxer at this point in their career was a household name headlining pay-per-views. Yeah, because the actual boxers were fighting boxers. There's a stepping stone that you take to get to become an elite boxer. If that was the case, then why isn't Gervonta Davis fighting UFC fighters and putting that on his resume?
Yeah, exactly. And even with that, it's like, they're not going to get the notoriety because we're generally talking about two unknown fighters fighting each other. Nobody jumps out the gate in their first fight and fights someone that has the notoriety or let's say or the clout of Canelo or Ryan Garcia or Gervonta Davis. No, you're generally going to be fighting. If you're an unknown, turning pro, you're generally going to fight somebody else who's unknown and doesn't have a name. You're fighting guys who already have brands that are huge from whatever respective sport that they're in, whether it be Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley being legends in MMA, or Nate Robinson being a four-time dunk contest champion in the NBA. We know all of these guys already. It has nothing to do with their boxing. They already have brands outside of what they're doing. So you get the leg up because these guys already had their brands built already, and you're just bringing it together. And you have your own brand because you are a YouTuber and you have this following. But let's be clear: if you were an unknown novice fighter, you would not be doing the things that you're doing as well. You're capable, which is great for you because you have built up your platform to where you can sustain yourself off of it. But let's not act like it's something that is not. Because again, if you were an unknown boxer fighting, you would be fighting other unknown boxers, and you would not have this type of notoriety. You would not be able to make the type of money that you're making off of these fights. At the end of the day, these are celebrity exhibition fights.
That's really all it is. It's celebrity fights, and like you said, you have the appeal because yes, you had Anderson Silva fans who tuned in yesterday. You had MMA fans who tuned in yesterday. You had boxing fans. You had Jake Paul fans. So you have 4 different aspects of it tuning in for whatever their own reasons were. But again, the feeling that I got just watching it with very casual boxing fans, right, was that the gig was kind of, because when people start complaining about stuff like, why are they only fighting 8 rounds? Why is he fighting this guy who's 47 years old? That's when like, all right, the appeal has kind of come off now, where people kind of see what you're doing. It's all right, it's entertainment, it's cool. But I got nephews.
He's just hoping it's a big enough name to where you can kind of get over certain things.
Right. I got nephews who are smart enough to realize, like, Anderson Silva's an MMA guy. You know what I'm saying? And he's 47. You're not. It's not as if you're fighting some boxer. You're fighting a guy who was inexperienced in this field, and you were younger and stronger and more experienced, and it still took you 8 rounds to win. So I think the gig is up. I would not be surprised if he really pushes to either fight someone who's credible next, or completely step back and say, I'm just going to handle the promotion. Because I think at this point it's done. I would be very interested to see how the numbers for yesterday, being that was a pay-per-view, how those stacked up against the previous fights. I think when they were still a little bit more intrigue into what he was doing.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look into those numbers for next week. But yeah, man, and the thing that sucks is I hate the narrative that's being painted, because you could easily say, all right, listen, you don't got to jump out the window and be like, all right, well, I'm gonna fight Tank or I'm gonna fight Canelo. Go get you one of these boxers that are like 6-7-0, unnamed opponents, but they're actual professional boxers in your weight class. Don't try to make somebody come down 30 pounds in 30 days. Don't nothing crazy like that. Fight an actual boxer who's somewhat of a novice at a novice level where you are. Have a real legitimate fight, and if you win that, even if you don't win, but you still look competitive in that fight, I'd give you respect because it takes a lot to step inside of a boxing ring, and I do respect the fact that you know Jake Paul has actually been training for like 4 years now professionally in the sport of boxing. I respect that because we see a lot of these celebrities, Nate Robinson and guys like that, jump in the ring and don't give themselves the proper training or the proper time to train and think just because I'm an athlete and I'm strong and I'm fast, I can jump in a boxing ring just because I may have had a fight in my life. And that's not the case. So I do respect that. But enough is enough, man. I don't want to hear about you fighting anybody who is not a professional boxer. And I also, and if you do get a professional boxer, I don't want to hear you try to make a heavyweight lose 30 pounds in 30 days. I want you to go get a boxer who's already in your weight class and fight that person. I'm not telling you to go fight Canelo, even though you've been calling him out, because Canelo will kick your ass. Plain and simple, no debating. That's not even like a serious conversation. Get one of these guys, novice, you know what I mean, and get a step in the ring, man, and see what you got. If not, then do like Eric said. I'm gonna step back and just work on the promotions, which is probably the best thing for you because that next level of fighting an actual boxer, you're gonna get your butt kicked and you're gonna get embarrassed.
You can't fight no 8 round fight and then say, "Oh, I want to fight Canelo." Like, stop. I mean, there's levels to it. Again, we know why he's doing it. It's all for promotion. If Canelo were to give him the time of the day, it's a big win for Jake Paul because it was like, now I've accomplished my goal. I'm in the ring with arguably the best fighter right now of his generation. But you're not ready for that. And I love the scenario you presented. Go fight. Go listen. Do this. Go fight one of those former Olympians who's just starting his career out. Go fight a guy who maybe only got 4 or 5 belts and fights under his belt, um, who has an amateur background, who's also trying to develop his name, and then let's see how that fight goes. And if you could beat him or hang with him, then we could talk seriously. But you can't tell me you're fighting guys who don't train to box, who only train to box when they're fighting you. Meanwhile, you've been in the gym for 4 years. He lives in Puerto Rico now. He's lived in Puerto Rico for several years now. That's where he does all his training. So
Yes.
you already have a huge advantage over these guys because you've been training day in, day out for something that these guys, they don't start training for it until they sign the deal. Anderson
Yep.
Silva was not training to box until he signed the deal to fight you. So it's different.
Yeah. I agree 1,000%. I'm just at this point I'm just tired. I'm tired of it. It's been a running joke for too long. We all know it's a joke. It's just sad that it's not being called out more in the media.
Well, you know
Um
why that is. The network, when they're in bed with the fighter in this way, it's a co-promotion. It's his
yeah,
brand. You saw he had his web series show name on his trunks yesterday. It's a combination with Showtime. So Showtime know that's what their bread gets buttered with him. So they
yeah.
can't call it what it is. They say,
Yeah, of
"Hey, look,
course.
this guy's not a real boxer." They got to say, "Well, look at Jake. I love what he's doing with his jab here. He's really improved in this area." They want to hype it up. Again, all this discussion could be ended very quickly. Get in the ring with a legitimate boxer who has similar experience to you. You're 5-0. Get you a guy who's fought 5 or 6 fights, who's a boxer, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah, that's like you said. There's a simple solution to this. Eric, let's get ready to jump into our final thoughts. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you go ahead and rock out first.
Final thoughts. We're gonna keep it going, man. I said it last week. We're gonna keep it going every week, man. Bring home Brittany Griner until they bring home Brittany Griner. That's it, man. Keep tuning in. We appreciate you guys. This is like a pregame show leading up to kickoff, so we appreciate that. Tune in every Friday night for the Friday Night Live series. We're going to start to expand that platform as well, so you're going to start seeing more of those episodes going up. Make sure you follow Real Fans Real Talk. make sure you send in them questions and comments, man, because without you guys, there is no us. We appreciate the time everyone takes to tune into the show. And we look forward to just seeing you guys in the future, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. Big shout out to everybody that was on the live today. Everybody that dropped in comments into the chat. We appreciate all of you guys. Make sure you guys continue to follow us on all our social media: Twitter, Instagram at Real Fan Talk, Facebook.com/Real Fans Real Talk. Subscribe to that YouTube channel too. YouTube.com/For the Fans Productions. And once again, if you're in the New York City area, you can always watch every Thursday night from 8 to 9 p.m. on Verizon 43. And if not, don't worry, you can watch from anywhere in the world. Just hit up that website, www.realfansrealtalk.com. Oh, and also while you're doing that, make sure you subscribe to the Sanchez Show podcast and the Real Fans Real Talk podcast, streaming on all major platforms. We got a lot of content, man, that y'all need to be getting to if you haven't already. But with that being said, Eric, you want to sign us out, man?
Man, again, thank you guys for my main man, Trip Young. I am Eric Sanchez. Enjoy the games today, man. We out of here.
Yes, sir. Peace.